Hello, everyone. Welcome to this live virtual session. I am Astha from People Matters, and I'll be your host and moderator for today. I formally welcome you to today's webcast on EX engagement and everything that matters best strategies to unlock workforce productivity and success. This webcast is brought to you by People Matters in association with Tartan, powered by Batik. Now, employees of today expect so much out of their jobs and their employers. They want their sense of purpose to align with the values of the company. They want their managers to aid their professional development. These are things that cannot be bought by simply increasing the employee's take home pay. It requires a paradigm shift in how employers and organizations view employee engagement and EX. And this shift is forcing companies to truly value their employees by actively working on bettering company culture and looking at practical, efficient ways to enhance employee engagement and experience. Now, before we begin, a little bit about our partner Batik. Batik is on a mission to help employees offer every conceivable perk and benefit to their employees. It's a streamlined and simplified platform that reduces the workload of every HR team. Now, without further ado, let me welcome our experts. Today, we have with us Vidya Sagar Ganamani, I'm sorry for that, the chairman and MD of EDICO. Vidya Sagar comes with over 3 decades of international leadership experience, with a track record of leading global businesses and HR organizations while driving cultural, organizational, and business transformations. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Asta.
Next, we have with us Vicky Jain, who is the founder and CEO of Unova. Vicky Jain is one of the founders of Unova, which is a cloud-based HRM software that is the brainchild of Convergence IT services. He's played an active role in the development of the software, which provides a 360-degree solution for HR automation and people management. Welcome, Vicky. We're happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Asa.
Next, we have, of course, Pramay Jain, who is the co-founder and CEO of Tartan. Tartan, as we know, is built with this mission, with a huge mission with a social purpose to help millions of people that are also in the workforce in India and globally become financially healthier and have a happier work life. Tartan has built Batik for Employers, which is an Amazon for employee benefits, offering a series of financial and well-being benefits. It's a one-stop solution with highly curated categories like credit earned wage, emergency funds, wealth and insurance. Before Tartan, Pranay was a risk management and analytics professional at marquee names like HSBC Bank, HDFC, and Citibank. We are so glad to have you with us, Pranay.
I think Pramay, you're on mute.
Unmute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Asta, and welcome Vidya, Sagar, and Vicky. Good to have you as well.
Thanks.
Yes, I'm sure this will be a very insightful discussion. So let's get. Okay, Shivangi has also joined us. Welcome, Shivangi. Shivangi is the CEO and director of Skillify. She has worked with brands such as British Council, Times Group, Macmillan, Cambridge, Unacademy, Jindal Stainless Steels, and many other private universities and corporates. Thank you so much, Shivangi, for joining us.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
All right, now let's get to it. As we know, our webcast, the topic of our webcast today is EX engagement and everything that matters, the best strategies to unlock workforce productivity and success. So I'll start a discussion with you, Pramay, and then we can go around everyone. My first question is, over the course of the many disruptions that have happened in the last few years, how do you think workforce and employee productivity has been affected?
Um, Thanks, Asta. So, in last few years, I think a lot has happened, right? Over a period of time, like in 2 to 3 years since COVID hit, before COVID and post COVID, and the re-COVID, which is I think we are seeing now, is something that has impacted multiple ways, right? The first itself is the remote work adoption, and maybe a hybrid culture which is coming into picture. That's one big thing, and it's not just happened in one geography, probably the entire globe, right? Where people were asked to work from home, save time, sitting at home, and then a lot of them pushed that, hey, come back to office. Not just smaller ones, but the larger one as well, right? The second thing that is, you know, come across is the digital transformation, the nature of communication, and the work that is happening, right? So a lot of, and thanks to again the remote working that came in between, where the entire communication and the work became digital, in nature, I would say, where the meetings completely transformed from physical meetings to digital meetings. I think the collaboration effort, etc., that goes, across teams, that has changed drastically, and it has become more and more data driven. uh, Improved communication, the multiple things have changed, from the disruption point of view, how the work has changed. Also, with this, there is also the human angle of every, workforce, employees as well as the employer, that has come into play, where people have realized that, hey, there is a mental health, there is a well-being that needs to be taken care. uh, so that has also evolved quite a lot. We are seeing so much work happening from the startups and across organizations, where things are improving. Another big thing is on the upskilling and reskilling of the I think the workforce, right, where the new technologies are being picked up, new tools are being used across. People have to learn, unlearn, stick to it, even if they like it, don't like it, etc. So overall, it has also brought in the agility and adaptability, across both organizations and workforce. And that's where the engagement of employees, the workforce, has become a paramount interest for every company. And to make sure that the people are motivated, connected, and committed, because there have been many instances where people do get lost. So quite a lot of things have happened, I think. But yeah, these are the core things that I believe that has, taken, everybody to act upon, basically.
Yeah, I'd like to take this question to Vidya Sagar. How do you think
Yeah,
technology has
thank you.
affected productivity of the workforce?
Yeah. So thanks, Asta. And so to build on what Pranay said, right? So there have been new ways of working that have come upon us. Like I think many people have said that COVID has proven to be actually the chief digital officer for most companies. It really radically forced a shift in the ways of working that was not envisioned before. Now, if you just think about the productivity and what could or could not impact productivity, right? So there are a few things. I always say that why do people come to work and what do you achieve at the workplace? There are a couple of things. For young professionals who are just starting up their career, I think that they seek coaching and they seek mentoring from people who have been there and get and are able to provide that coaching and mentoring. For the more senior people in an organization, collaboration is key. Yeah, because you need to actually think and work together to solve complex problems. And I think what has proven to be the reality is that the lack of coming together on a frequent basis has actually diluted these two things. The ability for leaders and subject matter experts in organizations to provide coaching and mentoring, and on the other hand, for people to come together and collaborate and solving complex problems in an efficient way. I think those are two things that which I would say have been the causes and probably the reason for a dip in productivity of employees over the course of the last couple of years. And I think different companies value these things differently. And you also begin to see that it's a bit of a cycle, right? So everybody was very happy to have work from home. There was time efficiencies. There were things around employee satisfaction, etc. But on the flip side, missing on these points also proved to be detrimental to organizations. And that's where I think many companies are striving to seek a better balance now between the convenience and the efficiencies of remote working versus the the collaboration, coaching, and mentoring that you can actually offer employees when they come back to the offices. So I think that's where things lie at the moment, Asta. That's my opinion about this one.
Very interesting how you talked about the dilution of things that have happened because of COVID, essentially. Vicky, what has been your personal experience with the disruptions and the effect on workforce productivity?
So I would second my thoughts with Vidya Sagar and Pramay. First of all, let me we're talking about two things: employee productivity and the disruption. Let us first just define productivity. What exactly is productivity? In simple equation, it is output upon input. How much you can create with the with how much you have consumed, right? So we have seen a lot of disruptions in entire human evolution also. If you see, there has been the first disruption that happened was agricultural revolution, then it was the industrial revolution, then the digitization age, then the AI age. So all of these disruptions, honestly speaking, have actually helped us increase the output and reduce the input, and obviously which kind of improves overall productivity of human effort that is going. But one disruption that we have recently seen, which is COVID, and what Vidyasagar also kind of mentioned, is it has actually had a dual effect on productivity. Whereas there has been a lot of things like work from home, the comfort, the reduction in travel time, which has actually helped us increase the numerator, which is output, but the input has also gone up. So it is actually probably I would say it is in some cases obviously helped improve the productivity, but it has other side of the coin as well, which is kind of reducing our overall productivity because of less engagement, because of I personally believe hybrid is a great thing, but the major challenge is the depleting trust, the depleting engagement, and the loyalty of people working with organizations, which is kind of reducing the overall productivity. So these are my takes on the overall last disruptions and how it has impacted productivity.
I love how Vicky's provided not just a historical perspective on the disruptions, but also a mathematical perspective on it as well, which obviously makes perfect sense. It is your That is how we can define efficiency and productivity. Shivangi, what are your thoughts regarding all the changes in the world of work, the disruptions, the lack of productivity and engagement?
I think post COVID things have changed. During COVID, things were different. And ever since everything started, I think we all have been just being very adaptable and agile towards things that are coming up and down, in and around. So, if you talk about the corporate world and my experience, I think while we were, during that COVID stage, that COVID period, we got to understand the art of working virtually. So that was the worst scenario that anybody could have ever imagined. I would not say that productivity wasn't there. Big companies, great startups have been formed during that time, and they are doing pretty well. And again, I come from Rackspace Technology, so we are like a virtual company. We are virtual employees to each other. We hardly have been to offices. So productivity is all about a great leadership, I would feel. I mean, if you talk to me, I would say that productivity is just equal to how beautifully you manage a team, how you nurture them, how you involve them, how you engage them, and most importantly, what has been your way of communication with them. During this time, there has been like great disruptions in terms of communication, which is why productivity has gone down. And that's when once things have started getting better, there's a lot of trainings that are happening specifically for managers and leadership. So I think everything is taking its beautiful curves time and again, and all people are trying to do is getting agile with things. So that's the beautiful curve that you get to see. Secondly, if you talk about now, I know it is difficult to be in a hybrid model from company's point of view. I absolutely understand and second that, even, and sometimes it becomes very difficult to reach out to them, right? uh, but at the same time, if you look at the employee benefit, hybrid model has come out to be one very good ways of attracting talent. Now nobody wants to really come back to work like for 5 days in a week. And looking at the kind of traffic and this and that and other things that are there, people feel that the salary that's coming in hand is like good one. So there are a lot of pros and cons, but coming back to productivity, I don't feel that there is any such disruption that would happen. If you have great leadership, whether it is virtual or it is in person, things would always remain the same. And that's where we at Skilldify come into picture, and we kind of help corporates level up their soft skills and behavioral skills. So my take would be a little different. Um, but I definitely buy in the points that everybody has got here. So yeah, that is amazing.
Just to actually put a slightly different perspective about it, right? So we all think about, of course, the nice creamy layer on top of the society. Yeah, I always challenge ourselves to say, what would happen if your farmer decides to stay at home? What would happen if your Swiggy delivery guy decides to stay at home or work from home? So I think that I always try to see the balance, right? I think there are the lucky few,
I
I would call it, who
you for
can manage to
are
actually
you asking
have these benefits.
something to me?
No, no, no. I'm just making a comment to the general thing. I think we always need to put these things in the perspective of overall society. And I always say that while we have the lucky few who can have the advantage of taking working from home, hybrid policies, etc., all of us fully rely on a whole group of people who are out there every day doing things which actually enable us to do these things. So I always say, try to keep that balance in mind as we go through our own lives. I think that's something that we should keep at the back of our mind.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, very well said. That's an important perspective. And I also like Shivangi's perspective about communication and productivity being interlinked. That it does come down to how well the managers are, communicating their expectations to their employees. So that was another great point. Thank you everyone for, I think we've set the context very well. So we'll move on to the next question. Another thing that has changed is the expectation of employees. Uh, Employees expect different things. The modern employee is very different from the traditional employee, so as to speak. So what would you say are the expectations of the modern employee that you faced, and how do you think that they've changed? What is the sort of curve you've seen over the years in your experience? Let's start with Vidya Sagar, and then we can go around again.
Yeah, so I think there's a beautiful Dan Pink video which talks about three things, right? Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. I always say those are the three things which define a lot about what people aspire for as they go about their lives. Doesn't matter if it's work or if it is life, etc. So, to me, for this specific question, I think purpose becomes a very important one. Is the purpose of the organization aligned with the purpose of each individual employee? I think when that purpose is aligned, everything else will take a second place, because I think there will be a huge amount of desire in that employee to be the best he or she can, or to learn that skill that is required to deliver on that purpose, or to operate in an autonomous way and be given the freedom, but also not deplete the trust, as Vicky was talking about. Because once your purpose is aligned, you will do everything that you can to actually make it successful. And I think that's something that I always believe fully and fundamentally in, is how do you allow employees to feel connected to the purpose of the company? And of course, if they're disconnected, they, they will also realize it's a big disconnect, and probably they'll find somewhere else where they can find that purpose. Provide them the opportunity to master the skills that they truly like to master, and finally give them the autonomy to operate in that organization. I think that's always the balance I try to seek.
Yeah, the balance is important in so many aspects of our work life. Vicky, how do you think the expectations of employees have changed?
So at our organization also, we mostly have millennials. I have got opportunity to work with senior people as well. And what I've understood, in early, while if I say 20 years earlier or 20-25 years earlier, the major expectation for any employee with respect to a job was majorly three things: compensation, designation, the job security. I would say compensation was probably 50%, designation maybe 30%, and job security 20% or so. But these days, millennials, we average age of my company is also around 20 to 23 years, and I have observed okay, these are probably secondary. Actually speaking, what are the expectation of these new folks is majorly around. I would say no, they are expecting a better work culture, which Vidya Sagarji also said, aligning with the purpose and getting into the right environment, the right culture to make create more value. That is something motivates people a lot. Growth opportunities, recognition, challenges. This is something very very interesting these days. People are actually working not just for money but to solve more and more challenges. I personally have observed money, a better motivator than money is give them the actual challenges, real life challenges, which they could use their skill to solve. And this is what everyone out there is expecting, or rather I would term it as modern day employees are expecting these additional stuff, which are now primary. Compensation, designation, job security is probably getting secondary.
A very interesting viewpoint because the average age of employees across have changed. We have millennials and Gen Z and whatnot entering the workforce. It's really changed how the standard workforce looks and thinks as well. Shivangi, what do you think about the changes in the employee expectation?
I think I have again dealt with very senior, and tenured resources. And if you talk about today's environment, it's all about being very Gen Z and fancy. So, as you rightly said, work culture, it shouldn't just be a good work culture. It has to be a very attractive one, very fancy one, which can lure the hearts and souls of our youth. And I always give this example, not just being a content creator, but otherwise also uh, with age and with the time that is probably advancing, the attention span is going really less. People want quick results. People want quick things to attract them, and that's where everything around us is changing, getting fancier. You just talk about the way companies are marketing themselves, the way recruiters are being trained to ensure that they are able to get the right talent in house. So for me, it's about giving that work culture where it's not just about growing the company, it's about showcasing them that once the company grows, you guys have your own personal trajectory, the career trajectory is mapped. And not just this, there's again a very there's a kind of an ambiguity now you'd see in employees. They join certain companies, and then you would see that attrition probably is really high. Sustaining this man for this workforce is really really tough. So you have to keep on giving them something that is attracting them, that is taking things you know giving things every time a new turn to retain this talent. So for me, that has been a new thing. And as rightly said by Vidya Sagarji, aligning them with the purpose, the vision and mission of your company is very very important. So that's very important. And if they are aligned, if they are the ones who have been given the right paths to set the culture for the company, so now everybody wants to become a leader, and they need to feel that leadership, no matter whether they are designated or not. And second, I'll go back to a point. Designations now they play a really big role. We don't have those traditional designations for people. They don't want executive, associate, and they just don't want to get through that ladder of 10 years to become a manager. Now things have changed so fast that they want to quickly become a manager, they want to have a team, they want to have that leadership spirit. So as far as my experience has been concerned, I think it's a very positive change in the corporate world. Now, when everybody feels one, you'd see a lot of things happening. And then it is the company and the people, the foundation that we lay. That is very, very important. If that is done right, you have all the leaders coming up. So it has got its own pros and cons, but you have to deal with it very smartly. If not done smartly, people like us would probably, learn from the company and would open our company, which is not a bad idea though. But then that's how things are happening.
Very interesting viewpoint on things, Shivangi. Really. Now, Pramay, what is your viewpoint when it comes to the change in the modern employees' expectations?
Right. So, yeah, I was actually coming back to the question that I think from the perspective of people, right? When they're working, what are their expectations, right? So one big role I see is, I think, uh, the demographics itself have changed, right? When I say demographics, it's no more the same Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad cities, I think, where people work, right? So it is, I think the good part is the demographics have changed. There are smaller cities where people work now. They have different ways of engaging with people. They see different things, right? People working in cafes, from top MNCs as well as the startups, right? So the expectations have changed, and the purpose is no more just the organization purpose or the people they work with. In fact, they have their own life goals that have come into play, that they really want to be cool, they really want to be happy, they have family, friends, other people, nearby people to take care of. So there are multiple things that have come up, right? So the purpose is not just the organization purpose, but their own why purpose has also come into picture, right? So that has become very important, and a lot of organizations, the people managers need to take care of those why purposes. And if and probably that's also the contributing factor of the high attrition, which Shivangini just mentioned about, right? The second key thing, what the purpose basically has definition has evolved, basically, is what I'm trying to say at the crux. The second thing that Vidyasagarji said was about autonomy, right? And now, when it comes to autonomy, it's just not that individual wants to have its own ownership about the work. They really want to make sure that whatever they do, they have complete control. Their work is getting recognized. They're really making an impact somewhere, because there are a lot of job roles. The impact is different, right? Where you might not see, as one example came about the Swiggy delivery boys, right? That impact versus maybe somebody within the same organization of Swiggy doing the coding, building the app, or updating the app, or maybe doing the partnerships. The purpose and those kind of things are very, very different. The autonomy is very different. Its expectations are different, but making sure they still follow the procedures, the norms, and the goals of the company, I think that is also the expectations. I think they, across the board, I think they want autonomy, freedom, etc. And finally, I think the transparency uh, is, I would say, um, has has also changed, right? Because people really don't want, when it comes to transparency, they don't want micromanagement, etc. Right? They really want a free culture. Work should be done rather than anything else, right? So sitting on top of their heads and then pushing policies, etc. That's very difficult when it comes to the new age ones. So obviously the demographics play a big role, that what kind of organization that you are running. Then also the what kind of workforce you have. You have a Gen Z's, tech techies, or a delivery worker, or a traditional organizations like banks, etc. So I think it really depends on the kind of organization people that they are, and expectations are have to be managed accordingly, so people have to adapt. And that's when I think we have also seen the HRs and the very organizations, pretty across the board, I think they have different expectations. And that's where they also feel that, hey, they're too stretched, because within an organization, you will see variety of workforce. So I think managing those expectations also is tricky. So finding a level field across the organization is also a tricky piece, which is where the expectations also change, that, hey, for some people it's very good, for some people it may not be cool, so you'll have to accordingly adapt. So I think those expectations have to be super flexible, super flexibly managed by the organizations, and that's what it is. But yeah, historically, as Vicky mentioned, the compensation, the designations, they are important, but eventually, I think their own purpose, their own life, their life around them has also become equally important. Something that an employer has to note about it. Otherwise, the attrition, low productivity will will be not far away from those organizations. Yeah.
Very well said, Vicky. I'll actually, my next question is based off of what you just said about managing these expectations of the employee. So, How do you think that, the HR function of organizations can better cater to these needs? Now that we've defined how the needs have changed, how can the HR functions of organizations proactively cater to these needs?
Uh, All right, I'll take that up. So
Yeah.
we spoke about the issues, right? Like, or rather expectations. Millennials now expect a better work culture, less bureaucracy, challenges, recognition, etc., etc. So for HR also, it's very simple, right? Do what would maximize these parameters. I would say HR functions, can probably, obviously they need to be more transparent, zero micromanagement, like Pramay also said. That is something people do not actually like. Even the smallest of the employees would probably not want to have much of micromanagement, and less of bureaucracy, create more challenges. Yeah, that is something, which is very interesting task to do, for HR folks or for managers as well. Okay, how do you create more challenges and let the same set of employees put in their brains? Like at our organization, we do hackathons, we do collaborative learning, wherein we actually tell them about we have a product roadmap, and there are certain features which are which are probably not created yet by anyone, or something which is very new. So these are all thrown open to even the interns to give their thoughts, and believe me, we have actually built some of the great features during these kind of sessions, or at least we've started with an idea of building that feature. So this is something which HR folks could do. Of course, use technology to the fullest. There are these days, hybrid obviously is in, it is the way forward. But to manage the other challenges which hybrid has with respect to engagement, etc., you could use tools like intranet, like having more of collaborative learning on online learning, take virtual hackathons, etc. So these are something organizations can, or rather HR functions can do to make this address these needs of modern employees and create more internal brand value. This is very important these days. It's no more just about creating a brand by putting an ad on on the TV, and building the brand for the customer. It is also equally important to build the internal brand for the employees also, so that, because they are the ultimate drivers for the organization's growth.
A very insightful point about creating the internal brand value along with the overall brand value there, Vicky. Thank you so much. Vidya Sagarji, what do you have to say about how HR can respond effectively to these changing expectations of employees?
Yeah, I mean, any HR organization has two roles, right? It has one role towards the leaders and the managers in an organization, and it has a role towards the employees, but also the candidates that they are interviewing to bring into the organization. So let me start with the first thing. I think um, with leaders, I think there has to be an honest discussion as to what is it that is required going forward for the organization. Is it, what are the capabilities that are required? Are these capabilities readily available in the market, or do we need to bring in somebody and nurture them to have these things? Because this the current tendency of needing people immediately as an immediate joiner tomorrow and then getting them to run, I understand the business pressures for that. I myself am a business leader. I completely understand that. But on the other hand, that's probably the most short-term way of building an organization and building capabilities which last long in an organization. So that debate about immediacy versus nurture is something that I think HR teams have a duty towards their leadership and their organization. Towards their own employees, I think current employees, I think the question is, how do you provide a balanced perspective as to what the organization needs versus what their own individual needs are? And I think that's been discussed by many of us in the last few minutes. And then how do you provide an environment where that balance can be struck? That's one. Three, I think, and finally, in the whole hunt for those ideal candidates, or many times we all are looking for this five-legged sheep, right? Who can do everything from programming in Java to probably writing out very nice creative content, and you want everything in between. The question then is, how do you go and make sure that the candidates that we bring on board are people who actually fit the culture of the organization? Yeah, so that's an important one. I think Pranay spoke about it, about culture and that culture fit, because sitting inside an organization, HR is in a unique position to understand what defines a successful employee. What is that nature of that employee? Skills we can always figure out, right? To figure out skills, those things you can, we have 100 tests to be done and things like that. You can do all those things, but understanding culture fit, I think it's a critical role for HR departments, HR teams, talent acquisition specialists, to ensure that the candidates that they bring on to being interviewed by leaders have a culture fit into the organization.
Yes, a cultural fit is indeed very important, and probably one of those priority areas for a lot of modern day HR like HR functions of modern day organizations. Shivangi, what are your thoughts?
So I think I completely agree with all of that they have said. But with that, I love the point where, Sir said that it's about creating your own personal brand within the organization. That fact is very important, and I think that's where the companies are focusing a lot. Um, in past 1 year, I have seen the most about employee engagement, organizing activities, doing something, employee experience, learning and development per se. Everything has increased drastically with an intent to ensure that there's something that can be felt within employees. See, we all have got different reasons to conduct such things. One, because we have got a lot of spare budget in our hand. And second is that do we really want to see the change? And I've seen not just small size companies, even the big companies, they all have been focusing on one good thing, and that is change. Unlike earlier times, feedback now is considered to be a great way of understanding your people, because now people are not that submissive or introvert, I would say. Now the era is about being extrovert, so everybody is so vocal about their needs. If something is not good, they are really on face. And I'm not just talking about very senior resources, I'm talking about freshers. So they are very carefully understanding what they expect from the organization and how organizations are doing critical changes, bringing those experiences for them. I think that is the best part, that I feel that HR as a profession is not just about hiring and recruitment, but it's beyond that now, and people can feel that. That's important. So I think that's the change that's happening, and everybody is trying to not just be a part of such activities, but they're also respecting the efforts. They are being a part. So I always say this, that introvert and extrovert is not really, it's not really a nature or a personality type. It's the mindset, and it's the era of being an extrovert, and that's where we celebrate it. So yeah, the next gens are like killing it. They are nailing it.
I love that phrase, era of the extrovert employee. I think that's wonderful actually.
You gave
Pramay,
me
what
an
do you
idea
think?
for my LinkedIn post today. I was wondering what to write. So now I have one.
I will use that as well.
Okay,
Pramay,
so
what are your
my
thoughts?
view is, that the famous quote, "Be the change that you want to see," right? So, I think the HR themselves have to be extremely aligned in terms of what's happening in the organization, what is the purpose of the organization,
Yeah.
and then they themselves need to be fully loaded, because we interact with multiple HRs. I think probably they are just too engrossed in hiring, recruiting, doing events for the employees, etc. So they're so engrossed in their day-to-day activities. I think probably they themselves forget the purpose of the organization at times, and then getting themselves fully loaded in terms of what kind of team needs to be built in, what kind of culture that we want to build in, what things to drive, etc. And then um, getting themselves super skilled across the tech that the organization that needs, the tech that they themselves need, and build the brand and things that we probably all of us discussed, right? That how do we build that brand inside? So HR role itself has transformed drastically. That they're no more just HRs, they're more like a equal partner in the organization, frankly. because with the more effort in talking about engagement, hiring, and the kind of culture that we want to build, they really play a very pivotal role at the end of the day. Because finding talent, keeping them motivated, it's very tough, right? So I think first of all they themselves need to load themselves with the right uh, tech and non-tech and soft skill capability. I think that's the first step, I think, to build a good organization. And then the other things would be, they really need to embrace the purpose of the employees that they're getting into, right? How do they can, connect people within the organization, be it employee, be it the management, be it the senior management, be it the customer as well. So they really have to play the customer service role as well, pretty well. Customer success and customer service role pretty well, because that's the uh, that's one thing that connects everybody. And then purpose, the autonomy, the challenging work culture, inclusive work culture, fostering learning, performance management, all of things will come together, things that we talk about. So and then comes the people part, where they really need to be again fully loaded in terms of how do they help their team members to be able to solve for their life and the work very easily, so that eventually whenever situation they come across that, hey, somebody is disengaged, or somebody is not being productive, somebody is not happy, they can quickly act upon and make those decisions, or make those actions pretty fast. So they also have to be extremely agile when it comes to building a non-disengaged but a very engaged organization, right? So which is also modern in nature, because again we keep hearing about millennial Gen Z, but we have to remember still the 18 to 90% of the workforce is still the millennial or the old ones, right? So you cannot just completely negate that workforce and say that, hey, we are just focusing on this segment, but we cannot ignore that. So I think those are the things that they need to balance it out well. And in that process they also, as Shivangi mentioned, that they really need to be ready with what's coming in future, because any organization, they need not plan for today, but let's say for next 5 years, and the future is what we just heard. So we have to plan for future, and we have to accordingly manage it better. So that's I would say, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for summarizing all these important points that we've talked about in the last question. We also have this great comment from Pankaj Piparia. Well said, Vidyasagar. Purpose is a critical and new driver of EX. One needs a holistic framework to assess EX and a certain employee and organization drivers impacting it. And he said that as I see the new RRR to retain employees is respect, recognition, reward that equals retention. So that's a great comment we've gotten from our audience. Uh, Next, I would want to move to the best strategies aspect of it. Like from your experience, this is like for everyone. What have been some of the best strategies that you've implemented in your organization that have helped increase employee engagement? Who would want to go first? Shivangi, let's start with you.
So I never work out of one place. So we always ensure that we have a day out. We work out of a cafe, and we believe in having an environment that give them the liberty to not just feel that we are into a 9 to 5 job. So our timings really aren't fixed. I focus on the work that we expect from them during one man day. So that is one practice that I ensure, because we all work hybrid, and most of the time as a person, as an employer, I'm always on site. So I don't micromanage things at all. So I always try to be as open as what they bring onto the table, and then I probably think over it. So our working hours are very, very flexible. That's one. And the second thing that I always tell them is that, in case if your job is not very fixed, and it's not giving you a lot of job security in your mind, why don't you probably go and build your personal brand, because that's where we come in. And you don't have to have your CV
I'm not able to hear Shivangi. I'm not
Yeah,
sure about
I
the.
We
think
lost Shivangi.
we've there's been some connectivity issue at
Yeah.
Shivangi's
Some glitch,
end.
right? Even I lost
Yeah. Yeah.
everyone. Is it better?
Yep.
Yep.
Is it better? Great. So these are some of my practices that I use. I never feel
Uh,
like having that culture. Maybe because we are not very big. I'm sure once we grow in numbers, we would have to have a lot of systems in place. But that's how I work, and I hope I continue to work that same way because I always dreaded a full time job in my life. These were my clear words to my parents that I would not do full time job no matter I don't earn money, that's okay. But joining a full time job has always been very scareful for me as a person because my first experience was like worst. But somehow when I joined Rackspace, things changed and I learned so much. And I always appreciate that company for the culture, the people, and everything that I've learned. It's a US based company. So that's where I understood. And now I mean, I hop onto like 25 companies in a week, one office to another, another to another. So I think that I have tasted almost every water that is there in the market now. So it's time for me to build something different, and that's what we are trying to do.
Wonderful. Vidyasagarji, what do you think about what, in your experience, have been the best strategies to increase employee engagement?
Yeah, so let me go back to maybe some time ago before my current role, right? So when I was actually in an industry where there was manufacturing. Yeah, so then if you again like I always try to put it, I mean, to get the whole ecosystem into play when we speak about these topics, because I'm sure amongst our audience we have people not just from the IT and the software side of the house, but also from industry and manufacturing and things like that. If you swing to that other extreme, there are things around safety, having adequate safety measures in a manufacturing plant, having the right ergonomics for employees who are working on repetitive physical jobs every day, having an environment where they can comfortably perform. Now, these are some of the basic things that are required to ensure that people can come and perform those repetitive tasks to ensure that productivity is high. So if you swing all the way from that extreme where some of the engagement needs are pretty basic, yeah, and then if you compare those pretty basic requirements and you compare what we provide in many organizations in India versus what are provided in many of these manufacturing industries in the Western world, there's a huge delta still. Then how do you methodically progress towards establishing a kind of a common level of acceptance for these things? So that's on one extreme of the thing. On the other extreme, where I think you talk about where people do cognitive kind of work and not physical kind of work, I think it's about indeed creating an environment where you manage the stress levels of employees. I think that's an important one. How do you ensure that there's a space where they feel safe, they feel secure, they feel recognized, and they feel rewarded for delivering meaningful work? And I think striking that balance is probably one of the best strategies to drive employee engagement up and get them to either perform at their peak in physical activities like manufacturing, or perform at their peak in mental activities like, for example, uh, coding in an organization. So I think you always have to think of these things as creating that right environment for people to perform. That's how I see it.
Thank you, Sanjay, for always providing us with a lot of with a very balanced viewpoint on things. Again, that is an important balance to at least aim to strike for all organizations, I believe. Vicky, what do you feel have been the best strategies that your organization has implemented that have helped
So
increase engagement?
yeah, I would like to say that one of the most important strategy or value system that we had, which actually led to a lot of solutions, which we are talking about, was effective and continuous communication, internal communication. So I'll give you an example. We have an open door policy. You want to talk directly to anyone in the organization, be it HR, be it the co-founder, be it the founder, be it the CEO. It's a completely open door policy. You can come and express your grievance, put forward an idea, whatever. And all of this has actually resulted in certain practices that have actually got created by themselves. We never planned. And like, for example, collaborative learning, this was an idea which just came. We were having an issue with ensuring doing regular trainings with employees, getting trainers onto the board, etc., etc. Then one day, one of our senior developers came and said, okay, why are we actually going outside and getting trainers? We'll just train our team ourselves. We have so much of people who could probably talk on financial management, talk on recent AI stuff and so on. So that's what I would term as collaborative learning. They started doing these sessions themselves. It was not initiated by HR. It was not initiated by the management. They started doing these sessions and now it has become a religion, ritual, I would say. कि every Saturday ये तो होता ही है company में, come what may. So I would say continuous and effective communication has led to solving a lot of problems. So I would term this as a very good strategy that we adopted. And of course, since we being a tech company, we had implemented a collaboration and intranet tool ourselves. We actually built it ourselves and then started selling it to our customers also. That also helped us a lot in effective communication and engagement with the remotest of the employees. Currently, we have approximately more than 60% of the people who are working out of outside Mumbai, from Indore, from Lucknow, from Hyderabad, etc., and they're all equally engaged, I would say, because of the tools that are that are put in place. So yeah, this is what I would say. Okay, using the right tool and having a very good effective and continuous communication strategy was one of the initiatives that helped us a lot.
Great insights, Vicky. Thank you so much. Premay, over to you. What do you think have been the best strategies implemented in your organization to increase engagement?
Um, I think from the engagement perspective, I think communication does play, I think, the most important um, uh, tool, I would say, for an HR to make sure that they know, first of all, what people are feeling, thinking about it, what they're looking for, as well as also, passing on what the team, seniors, management, or customers, what they're thinking about, right, and how to deal with those situations pretty well. So I think alignment of the organization purpose and what people are thinking, I think that communication only can solve, right? And communication, and something which is very direct in nature, right? So I think these open doors policies, anytime anybody can ping and chat about it, call, if not, so they're not just a few slots, they can ping, fix up time, and they can share their problems, etc. I think that's the best thing. The second thing is, I think, making sure that they have the right basic safety nets in place, which we just heard, right? That uh, if they need financial help, there are certain tools available. They need physical, mental health, etc., family help, something that is needed, the tools are available. They have the right rewards and recognition, sort of a thing that is there with them, that hey, everything good you do, you're rewarded. Everything that you do well, which is outside, you're well recognized, I think. So across the things, there are small things that you need to keep doing to make sure that they're safe, secure, well connected, etc. I think those are the things that does play a big role. And eventually, I think and eventually, if somebody wants to still leave, I think wish them well. I think rather than keep pushing them, or keep don't ruin the relationship at the end of the day, right? So so that's the most important thing, right? Uh, there could be a variety or there could be a disagreement, or there could be a different purpose people may have, because different lifetime also calls for different purpose, depending on the life stage that people are in. So I think never get too attached, but also make sure that you're doing enough, that at least they respect for what you do and what they do. I think that mutual respect, communication, I think those are the two things that HR, team members, organizations can drive to the max. I think rest, I think, are good fillers.
Thank you, Pramay, for those insights. And I do feel we have a great rhythm going with the discussion, and we could go on, but we do have some audience questions that I'd like to uh, open to everyone. One of the questions that's come across is what do you think will be the impact of rising automation on EX and employee engagement? So, who wants to take that?
I'll take this maybe. I
Sure.
think again, anything new that, or anything that happens, right? It has pros, cons, etc. Right? So, but this, I think, is something that there are more cons than sorry, more pros than cons, I would say. I think the automation, as I think few minutes ago, as I mentioned, that HRs also need the right tools. They also need to be fully loaded. So they also need good HRMS system, good communication systems, good systems, so that they can check the pulse in terms of what's happening in the system, organization, etc., without even being with people, being with people, etc. So I think that is important, and I think the tools related to uh, something that will help them are extremely important. So as simple as that, we have observed that people who are using our tools pretty effectively, they're very engaged. We have an employee benefits tool, people are using it, and that engagement, that tool data points itself tell us that how people are engaged, how much they check out in terms of what's happening, what's new coming in, etc. They are also excited about what HR is doing, etc. So those kind of tools are extremely important, um, and 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 the impact is huge for sure. Because we were talking to a couple of organizations that they have pretty good tools as well, but they were tools as in the policies, policies, and they had very fantastic leave policy, they had a fantastic financial packages, etc., health insurance, but people were not aware about what's, how to avail them, how to use them, what happens when they avail it, etc. So I think those tools become super important to communicate the end-to-end things, and there's in black and white, for example, so that nobody gets confused, and also the language aspect. Yeah.
Thank you, Pramay. Another question that's come across is what aspect of your company culture are you most proud of? Vidya Sagarji, would you like to take this?
Yeah, sure. I think the ability for, I think Vicky mentioned an open door policy, right? So to me, at least the way I see it and the way we operate at Adeco India, is to ensure that there is very little barriers or thresholds for an employee, does not matter who it is, to easily reach out to anybody and have an honest communication about things that are going on. And this continues to prove to be a challenge, right? So even though many companies have open door policies and you consistently encourage these things, there are still barriers of middle management. There are still barriers of first time people leaders who feel nervous about the ability of their reports being able to have a direct conversation with somebody at the top of the organization. So that ability to balance and then identify those barriers and then consistently work to reduce them and encourage the direct communication, I think is something that I'm proud of. And that's something that we all should consistently encourage. And I think that's something that, that I'm pretty proud of, and still work to do as always. But as a starting point, I think that's something that I'm very proud of.
Thank you so much, Vidya Sagarji, for that. We do have a couple of more questions, even though we're almost running out of time. Let's get to one very quickly. Someone's asked us how to handle the unnoticed stress and turn it into, productive, actionable insights, so as to speak. So, who wants to talk about, handling stress?
Maybe Shivangi would be the right person.
Yeah,
All right. So I never say that you have to probably handle stress. I'm like, it's good to have it. If you don't have it, what will motivate you in life? It's just that we need to get a better word to probably, maybe a better synonym for the word stress that can train our brain that it's not really that's not really a matter of stress, but part of life. Well, to answer the question, how do we handle stress is first to understand what is stressing you out. So the most of the situations when I get stressed are when I feel like I'm not doing my job
Think we're losing Shivangi again.
I think we have some tech issues at Shivangi's end.
Maybe,
Maybe let
okay.
me pick it up then on
Yeah,
behalf of
I'm so
sure.
Shivangi
sorry.
then Nasta.
She's back. She's
Um,
back.
uh,
Okay. So I'll continue, and then Vidya Sagarji, you can take it forward. So I always try to go back and do like a root cause analysis. But before I do any of those things, the moment I understand that there's something triggering within me, I try to find a better hobby, a better activity to do, rather than just stressing onto that, that thing as of that point. I don't do that. I'm like, I take some time off. I try to change my work settings, my environment. I go out, I read, I listen to music. I probably scroll Instagram to just get out of that state, because while you are in that state of stress, you'll not be able to make a good decision at all. So you at least have to get out of it and then sit back and see what bothered you. So, how you handle stress is, I always take stress as a great place for me to learn, a great opportunity for me to understand how do I need to get better? How do I need to handle my probably mood swings or my reactions? So that's better. Just get out of that situation, change your work settings, change your environment. And then once you feel relaxed, you feel okay, then go do the root cause analysis, ask a couple of questions. Okay, what made me get so stressed? Was it my own cause or somebody else's? So just try to sit with yourself, and self talk is very, very important, and that's very important. You could do while you are driving back to home. That's how I do it. So yeah.
Thank you, Shivangi. Like Billie Jean King said, pressure is a privilege. So I think we need to change how we view stress, perhaps to handle it better. Anyone else wants to add to it? Because we'll wrap up the session after this.
I think Vidya Sagarji wanted to
Yes,
speak
please.
about. Then maybe I'll just put forward.
Maybe just to add one comment on that. To me, I think make it discussable. It's oftentimes a topic which is treated as a non-discussable in organizations. Make it okay to be discussed and set examples with leadership talking about how they deal with it. And I think being vulnerable and discussing these topics makes it a topic which more and more employees will feel comfortable to discuss, because once you discuss it, you can have ways of addressing it. That's all.
Maybe I will also just like to add onto what I agree with what how Shivangi even kind of I also do the same thing when out of stress. I personally also do something which I'm very good at, or I like doing, maybe writing a code, maybe going out with friends and so on. So that is something you could do. And one more thing I would say is finally stress and tension is contagious. So the one of the best thing you can do is just isolate yourself so that you do not pass on that to others. And of course, after some point of time, obviously you will be back to business in a very nice and good mindset.
All great
Okay.
points. Yep. Sorry, please, Vidya Sagarji, you were saying something?
No, I was just saying thank you all for this session. I think it was a very insightful session.
I would also like to say a big thank you to everyone for joining us, to our audience as well, and to all our panelists, Vidya Sagarji, Vicky, Pramay, and Shivangi. Thank you so much. I feel like it's been a very insightful discussion. This could have gone on, which is always
Yep.
a great sign, I feel. Thank you so much. We would like to thank our partner for the session, Batik. And last but not the least, a big thank you to all our attendees. Um, and please don't forget to provide your feedback in the survey link in the chat section, because your input matters. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Have a great
Thank you.
session.
Good to see you.
Bye.